The auditor wants to interview Anastasia on the phone about her personal and business relationship with Leon Black. The accountant resigns after saying he refuses to file the incorrect tax returns. This one art piece that about tripled in value wiped out all his losses. Today, Anastasia is a New York art world insider and socialite, someone who has moved millions of dollars worth of artwork through her network, and now serves on the board of multiple art foundations. But according to various documents in the Epstein files, along with financial records, the person helping guide her finances, career, and business was Jeffrey Epstein. And the money that moved through her network includes millions from the billionaire Leon Black, the same Wall Street titan that paid Jeffrey Epstein $150 million for financial advice. Anastasia's business dealings even had the IRS sniffing around Leon Black. And let me tell you, I have never seen Jeffrey Epstein this stressed about anything else than over just how exposed Leon Black left himself through his business dealings with Anastasia. But how exactly did Anastasia Siroshenko go from relative obscurity to penetrating some of the most elite circles of American wealth and power? While little is known about her childhood, we do know that Anastasia was born in Ukraine sometime between 1986 and 1988. Quick note for this video, we're going to be relying heavily on the jmail.world user interface created to host Epstein files, and the reason for this is while in the initial dump Anastasia's name and emails were not redacted, the DOJ has retroactively redacted her name. Now, I can't quite tell if this is because she's considered to be a victim or not, because the DOJ has done a terrible job with the redactions, and they have certainly redacted many people who are definitely not victims, but I'm still going to provide you with the file numbers and the data sets, so if you want, you can still go on the DOJ's website to verify the information for yourself. All the emails in Jmail even has this really nifty button that lets you view the original document on the DOJ's website. Now, most everything we know about Anastasia's early life comes from a press/bio document that she was working on together with Epstein in response to an IRS audit, which we're definitely going to get into later. And in this document, we learned that she has a Bachelor of Arts degree in drama from a university in Kiev, which sets the stage for her early life ambitions. Like many young women her age, Anastasia had dreams of becoming a model or actress, and by all accounts she was well on her way in succeeding in this goal. Prior to entering Epstein's orbit, she worked as a model in Asia and Europe, gaining experience and building her portfolio, before her journey finally brought her to New York City. Now, the earliest confirmed communication we have between Anastasia and Epstein dates back to April 5th, 2010. There are other references to Anastasia before and after, but in this email you can clearly see her full name, so we know this is our Anastasia. Now, Epstein really likes his Eastern European women, and there are in fact a few other Anastasias floating around, so I'm gonna do my best to show you guys just the emails where we have both her first name and last name confirming she is the correct Anastasia. And this looks to be an introduction email of sorts. The title is Hi from Anastasia, and if you go to the DOJ's website, you'll see that it looks like some images were sent, assuming of Anastasia to Epstein. And finally, a lady in the name of Svetlana is involved in this email thread as well. Now, Epstein wastes no time. He's pretty much immediately like, when am I seeing you? What's your week's schedule look like? And Anastasia says that she has casting calls and she usually knows her schedule the evening before. They have clearly already exchanged phone numbers, and Epstein is trying to call her. Within days, Epstein invites her to fly down to Palm Beach on his plane. She says she would love to, but like she said previously, she has to work and hopes the invitation Epstein is extending to her is still valid the next time she has free time off work. Shortly after, Anastasia reaches out to Epstein, thanking him for the great time that she gets to spend with him and all the support that he's providing. She's sad that she can't get to fly with him again anytime soon and asks when he's going to be in New York so that she can see him again. again. And she also spells out her name. It sounds like she's correcting Epstein on the spelling of her name, which makes sense because at this point I've seen Epstein discuss Anastasia with other people where they spell her name incorrectly with an S-I-A rather than an S-I-Y-A. And she ends the email with kisses and many hugs. And this whole name thing is quite a pattern that's emerging, same as it was in the Island Manager video. Later on, you'll see that Anastasia shortens her last name to Siro rather than Siroshenko. Now, she's thanking him for his support. You might be wondering what kind of support Epstein is providing to Anastasia. Now, for starters, she gets to live out of Epstein's apartment. We have an email thread here where she misses a call from Epstein, and Epstein is like, at least while you're staying in an apartment of mine, I would appreciate a call back. And he goes, where are you? Just kind of creepy, but what do you expect from this guy? Before she moves into the apartment, Epstein is having his assistant put some chocolates on the table for Anastasia. Not sure why the title cut off here, but if you go back to the search, you can see it's about Anastasia moving into the apartment. And finally, we have a thread from May 4th where Epstein says, the apartment you're staying in is temporary transition until you're on your feet. I would hope you would find and be able to support a place by the end of May. And then he softens that by saying, you're great, I don't want you to think that you have done anything wrong. So while we don't know exactly how long Anastasia stayed in Epstein's apartment, we do know she definitely did sometime between April and May of 2010. We don't have an exact date on when she moved out or whether the move out date got pushed back further. She also gets life and career advice from Epstein. This is quite an interesting exchange they have, where Epstein tells her, don't say the F word to anyone except in bed, especially not at a table. He says you're 22, which gives us an exact age and birth date of 1988. He says you should only ask questions of men. They're not interested in your opinions, not until you're 30, and even then marginally. A very Andrew Tate take. Well, dude, you're only hanging around attractive models and women whose interests are being beautiful and working in a career field that's related to their attractiveness and looks. You're not going and dating astrophysicists or rocket scientists. So naturally, his worldview is going to be that women have nothing interesting to say. And that's not knocking on attractive women on models. I'm sure there are plenty of models who are both very intelligent along with being beautiful. But my point is, if you're spending most of your time in a career field that's solely related to your attractiveness and your looks, then you're going to have less time to develop your brain. And also, she's 22. Her brain isn't even fully developed yet. What do you expect? He then goes on to berate her for having beliefs outside of 21st century science and says, it's okay, I forgive you. I know you come from a country with old-fashioned people, but you can be educated. The best advice he gives her is, it's now time you take your life seriously. Actress model is not freedom. And what I think he means by this is, hey, it's not free to be an actress or a model. There is a give and a take. For people to give you a job, you might have to give them something you don't want to, which is kind of ironic considering what we know about Epstein. And she says, oh, thank you so much. From this moment out, I'm going to take my life seriously. At a later date, she's asking Epstein's advice regarding to some classes, and he says, no, this is not interesting. It's academic. You need skill building, not theory and film. He goes on to say, I'm just giving you my advice. You haven't asked me to pay for school, and I am hesitant to do so. However, shortly before she does start school, Epstein does tell his assistant to give $500 to Anastasia for school. I don't have the last name here, so we can't be sure this is our Anastasia. However, it is right around the time she's supposed to start school, and I haven't seen any communications regarding the other Anastasias in relation to them going to college. So take this last email with a grain of salt. I think that's enough context laying for the background. But before we go into more interesting things like Anastasia's entry into the world of elite art dealership to the billionaires through Epstein, the connections with Leon Black, and possible money laundering and tax fraud. There are a few loops I want to close. For starters, beyond the communications between Anastasia and Epstein, I did actually find old photo shoot pictures of Anastasia with Wolf magazine proving that she's a model. And in these pictures, she is listed as being a model with MC2. In the first picture, I don't think she's the model being shown in the picture. In the second picture, I am pretty confident that is Anastasia due to the mole on her cheek, the shape of her eyebrows, and her face in general, so I'll put up a side-by-side and you can decide for yourself. But in the description of this one, again, Anastasia Ciro is listed as being one of the models in the shoot with MC2 model management. And if you're not familiar with Jean-Luc Brunel, he was a French model scout, a close friend and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, and the head of the MC2 model management company. There are, hundreds if not thousands of emails between Jean-Luc Brunel and Epstein regarding this girl and that girl and flying in this girl and whether she's up on the website or not, and this client booked this girl. Jean-Luc Brunel, before his death, was accused and being investigated for SA by multiple of his previous models, so he is a whole different can of worms that we don't quite have time for, maybe in a future video. An important point of clarification, I did not run into a single communication regarding Anastasia being involved in the more sexual and inappropriate side of Epstein's business. What I'm mainly going to talk about and focus on is the financial, business, tax related things, the shady ongoings in the art dealer world, and how the billionaires use art for their own benefit. So please keep that in mind going forward. Please do not reach out to her, and please do not harass her in any way, shape, or form. I also want to take a moment to thank all the new members of the Catacomb clan. I said the goal was reaching 100 subscribers in the course of a few months, and you guys just absolutely blew that out of the water within the course of 1 week. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It takes a lot of time and effort to make these videos, so I really appreciate being appreciated. And if you enjoy digging through the public catacombs we call the internet but have not subscribed yet, please do. Now back to the video. With that said, can someone please explain to me how the hell she got into Columbia University? This is a really elite, whatever that means, Ivy League school. Their acceptance rate back in 2012 was like 10%. She must have been the president of the student body and did all the extracurriculars and got straight A's in her drama bachelor's degree from Ukraine. And this is completely speculation on my part, but there is a part of me that has to wonder if she got in partly through her connections with Epstein, because it is quite wild to me. You have a degree in drama from a Ukrainian university, then you work as a model, and then all of a sudden you get accepted into Columbia. Regardless of what I'm speculating, she did, and congratulations to her. We love ourselves people who are out there trying to better themselves. After the advice from Epstein saying, you need an education, you need to take your life more seriously, she attends Columbia from 2012 to 2017 and gets herself a Bachelor of Arts in Art History, Criticism, and Conservation with a special concentration in business management. And this is where we see her career start to pivot. Right now she is focusing on art. But it's not just her education that starts pivoting towards art. A year after starting school, she also opens up a company called Sublime Art LLC. Now, as you can see in this document, the company was started in 2013, and at the bottom she's named as the person that started and owns the company. Outside of this document, there really is no other public information that remains about Sublime Art. Poof, gone, as if the company never existed, even though it is still active today. There's no website for it, it's not mentioned in her LinkedIn. In fact, no work experience is mentioned on her LinkedIn prior to 2020, just her education. However, where we do find a lot of information about Sublime Art LLC and its business dealings is entirely in the Epstein files. From her bio that she's working on with Epstein, we learned that Anastasia has established Sublime Sublime Art as a leading art advisory firm and private dealer in New York. We also learned that she does approximately 1 to 2 art shows at galleries a year, and yet somehow, within less than 5 years of her starting her career in art curation and dealing, as she is graduating her bachelor's degree, simultaneously she's closing a multi-million-dollar art sale deal with the Wall Street billionaire Leon Black. Now, the deal is, once Leon Black's company Narrow Holdings LLC receives the $7.8 million for the art piece from the buyer, they're going to give Sublime Inc. $1.8 million for facilitating the sale. And you might be wondering, what is this masterpiece fetching a price of $7.8 million? It's this. Paul Klee's was Feltheme. Now granted, apparently he's a pretty popular painter, but what's interesting about this art deal isn't the price or the art itself, but rather how the agreement for the deal was made. The person preparing the agreement document is Heather Gray from Elysium Management LLC, which is Leon Black's family office, and even though the deal is being done between Anastasia's Sublime Art LLC and Leon Black's Narrow Holding LLC, Heather is reaching out to Jeffrey to check to see if the agreement is appropriate before sending it over to Anna. Jeffrey makes a recommendation to ensure there's no escrow to deal with, and Heather says, "But do we 100% feel comfortable that Sublime will give us the money? I don't know Anna at all. She may be perfectly trustworthy, but ... And Jeffrey says, yes, it's okay. After making the edits suggested by Jeffrey Epstein on September 18th, Heather sends the agreement over to Anna on September 20th, and Anna forwards the agreement to Epstein saying, "Hey, how are you? Please take a look. All okay? I need to give my full name. Is that okay?" Think about that for a second. It sounds like Anastasia does not know that Epstein has already seen this agreement and has been involved in the process well before Anastasia received it. And Heather sounds like she does not know that Epstein knows Anastasia personally, which is why he trusts her that she's going to send over the money. So Epstein is facilitating all this in the background, while Anastasia's Sublime Art Company is serving as the front-facing agent facilitating the deal with Leon Black, which would give Epstein some distance and plausible deniability from his involvement in these art deals with Leon Black. I smell something shady. Also, this is like 25% commission for Anastasia's company. I mean, I'm no art dealer or professional, but 25% commission sounds like a lot.
What's your name again?
Mine, Jordan Belfort.
Jordan, what do you get on a blue chip stock?
I make 1%. I did make 1%.
Pink sheets, it's 50.
It's 50%? 50% commission?
But of course, that's not all. We have another thread from 2015 where, again, Epstein is involved in Sublime Art business quite directly. They're discussing invoices paid to Sublime Art by Leon Black, dating all the way back to 2013, actually, meaning a year within starting art school, and in the same year she established Sublime Art, she somehow managed to hook one of the biggest whales in Wall Street as her client for art dealing. The same client, Leon Black, who also happens to be Epstein's bestie and has paid him over $150 million in tax/financial advice. But one thing I want to draw your attention to is these invoices from 2015 are pretty much sequential. 130,002, 130,003, 130,006. The invoice numbers don't seem to be random at all. So my question is, and assuming they started at zero, I would think they did, but maybe not. How the hell is she turning 130,000 sales/jobs within the course of 2 years after opening Sublime Art? Okay, let's be a little conservative here. Let's say they wanted to look like they had done some business, have the company look more legit. So let's say the first invoice number was 100,000. There's 730 days in 2 years. This is 2015 Sublime Art Art is established in 2013, so 2 years of operations. I had to pull out my calculator, but 30,000 divided by 730, that gives you about 41 invoices a day, including the weekends, as if like she took 0 days off. She worked 24/7 for 2 years straight. That's still 41 invoices a day. That's a crazy amount of business. I would think for anyone, any private small art dealer, but let alone one that just started her degree in art, and before that she had zero experience with art. She was a model. But of course, it doesn't stop there either. We have another email from Richard Kahn, which is Epstein's finance guy. If you guys remember from the last video, the org chart, Richard Kahn was listed as the head of finance department for Jeffrey Epstein. They're discussing an art deal with Christie's, and Sublime Art is going to get a 10% commission from it, amounting to approximately $700,000. Anastasia is an art dealing god. Right from the get-go of her career, she's making huge deals with Wall Street billionaires. Fine. What I found to be more interesting is if you look up the business address for Christie's, here Christie's New York, Christie's Fine Art Storage Service, it seems to be a fine art, luxury, and antique auction business. And Christie also happens to be the person who does the appraisal for Leon Black's art. I found this document that is a list of all the artwork that Leon Black owns by the point of March 2017. And you can see here that Christie's appraisal is the number listed for the current value as of 2016. This is a 51-page document. Leon Black does not take a single dollar loss for any of his artwork for like the first 37 pages. I mean, some of his artwork is doubling in value, tripling in value, quadrupling in value, 5x in value, 10xing in value, and you can just go down this document and zero loss, zero loss, zero loss, zero loss, zero loss, all gains. Millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of gains. So on page 22, this is like the last time he has any gains. He does have about 13 pages worth of artwork that has not gained or lost any value. And then by the time we get to page 37, finally, he has some pieces that start losing value. But not only is there way more artwork that gains value, the artwork that gains the most value are in the multiple tens of millions of dollars, yet the artwork that loses value never loses more than $500,000. And there's certainly a hell lot less that lose value than gain value. Okay, I couldn't help myself. I totaled up all his losses, so he lost approximately about, can you see that? 24 million and a quarter. Now, if we go back up to his gains, that means his 10th most valuable art piece insofar as unrealized gains, Femacosant, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but just entirely wiped out the whole of his losses, meaning everything outside of this singular painting and the first 22 pages of gains are just gravy. It's all gains. This one art piece that about tripled in value wiped out all his losses. Everything else here and here and here and on forth just gains. So I don't know. I guess he's a genius. That's what's going on. Leon Black is just an absolute art god genius. And it has nothing to do with who is appraising the art. We still have a lot of stuff to go through, so I'm not gonna look through it with you guys, but if you want, here's the document for all of Leon Black's artwork with pictures from 2012. And you might be wondering, Kat, how do you know that this is artwork owned by Leon? Some of the sense of shadiness I get is the layers and layers of holding companies and shell companies that these billionaires use to hide and transact their assets. Here we can see, let's see, Pent Holding, Narrows, a joint account of sorts. LDB owns 50%. Leon's middle name is David. Leon David Black LDB. APO01, more AP Narrows. And then we start seeing LDB directly owning them. So then we go back to this different email. Ada Clapp from Elysium Management LLC, again, the family offices of Leon Black, talk talking to Jeffrey about service agreements for some of the family trusts and entities covering the cost of Elysium management. And here we see Narrows Holdings 2, Pent Holdings, as we just saw in this document right here. We see the APO 01. We see LDB. Oh, Noel Kelb. I just saw that somewhere too. There we go. Noel Kelb. It's all a bunch of holding companies for Leon Black. I mean, honestly, it starts to get a little ridiculous. Leon Black's Kids Trust is supposed to purchase an art piece called Dante, and people from Elysium Management checking in with Jeffrey in regards to the agreement. Leon Black wants to sell some pieces of art. They're checking in with Jeffrey on how to handle the situation. Leon and Epstein are deciding together how AP Narrows is going to be regarded for income tax purposes. I mean, the reason we have access to all of Leon Black's shit is because Jeffrey Epstein was either directly sent and included in the conversation or at least CC'd and forwarded these emails. In the discussion regarding Leon selling these art pieces, Heather Gray from Elysium is checking in with Epstein and another fellow named Rich on whether they should sell it while Leon still owns the piece 100% or through Narrows, and whether this is good, bad, or irrelevant if the art investment entity starts out with more losses than gains. We have an email that Jeffrey is drafting to not be sent but hand delivered to Leon, where he goes on and on for paragraphs about all the details of Leon's business dealings and art entities and investments. And I mean, he knows in and out all of it. Epstein knows everything that Leon is doing with his money. And he's giving him an earful about how he keeps hiring crappy people and he needs to hire like senior tax and finance people. And then he seems a little upset that Leon wants to back out on how much he agreed to pay Epstein. What the hell is going on here? What exactly are they trying to do? I mean, we know it's all about preserving your wealth and making more of it, paying as little to taxes as possible. But what are the exact mechanisms they're using to achieve these goals? I'm gonna borrow some phrases from this article because it summarizes it better than I can, but the first strategy is called buy, borrow, die. So basically, billionaires like Leon Black have assets that are assessed to be super valuable, like his artwork, which they put down as collateral with the bank and then borrow money from the bank. And Leon Black has been doing this to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And because it's a loan, then he doesn't really have to pay taxes on it. It is a well-known strategy. Sometimes billionaires will do this where they're putting up as collateral ownership in their companies. That way, the money they're getting, rather than counting as income, it counts as a loan. They're not paying income tax on it. So the next time you see dumbass articles like this one on the screen suggesting, oh, the billionaire just wants to do good and he thinks he's been paid enough, remember that no, that's not what's going on. What's going on is he doesn't want to pay income tax. So he's going to be compensated through his company with assets that get taxed at a lower rate, and then use those assets as a collateral to get a loan from the bank that he doesn't have to pay taxes on. This is commonly referred to as tax loopholes that the wealthy exploit. And while it's technically legal, it isn't easy to pull off, which is why the likes of Leon Black pay Epstein upwards of $150 million for Epstein to manage the whole process step by step so that Leon Black doesn't get caught up by the IRS. And they do this borrowing till they die. They set up their kids with their trusts, and if done right, their kids don't have to pay back anything from what their parents were doing, then that's it. So this is a more well-known strategy. I was familiar with this one. The next strategy I actually found out while I was doing research for this particular video. Now, the second strategy is called a 1031 exchange. The quick SparkNotes summary version is you're allowed to exchange assets, and when you exchange these assets, there's a certain period of time in which you are deferred and do not have to pay taxes on the sale or exchange of that asset. Now, what wealthy people can do to exploit this rule is they exchange, and before the tax deferment period is over, they exchange the asset again and again and again and again and again and again. Therefore, they're constantly in the deferred tax period and do not have to pay taxes on whatever the value or proceeds they would have gotten from that exchange. I've heard this strategy referred to as swap till you drop, meaning you're swapping your assets till you're dead so that you pay as little taxes on it as possible. And this comes up a handful of times in the emails between Elysium management employees and Epstein. In this particular document, they're hoping to complete two separate 1031 exchanges for two different pieces of art, one owned by AP Narrows and the other one owned by LDB 2011 LLC. Both companies we saw come up in the document showing all the art pieces owned by Leon Black. Now, there was a change to the rules for 1031 back in 2017-2018 era. You used to be able to exchange multiple different types of assets, including artwork, as long as they were like in kind. So you're exchanging one piece of art for another piece of art. After the rules changed, now you can only do 1031 exchanges for real estate. Now, for the 1031 exchange to work and for the IRS to not be sniffing around, they need to have an exchange agent. I've also seen it referred to as a qualified intermediary, basically a third party that's supposed to be handling the transaction so that the investor doesn't take possession for the proceeds of the sale directly. And as far as I can tell, exchange agent and qualified intermediary are interchangeable in this context. It's basically supposed to be a third party. And in a separate 1031 exchange email between Elysium employee Heather Gray, where Epstein is CC'd, they're discussing the exchange, and something that caught my eye is that the exchange agent or the qualified intermediary cannot be a dealer with whom you have done business in the past 2 years. So it cannot be Gagosian, Aquawella, Matthew Marks, or Sublime, meaning Sublime Art LLC. But if you go to a different email regarding another 1031, they're discussing how the qualified intermediary cannot be Gagosian. However, the qualified intermediary could hire Gagosian or another dealer. So you can't use your preferred qualified intermediary. So you just add another layer, find another qualified intermediary, and have them use your preferred qualified intermediary. And at this point, I'm like, how is this even a third party sale? I mean, Epstein funded and influenced Sublime Art, which is now the qualified intermediary for Leon Black sometimes, except it's not, because Jeffrey Epstein is all over and managing all of Leon Black's art and investments in general. Oh look, Leon Black's kids' trust sells one of Leon Black's holding companies with his art to another one of Leon Black's holding companies with his art, and then the money from that sale goes into his kids' trust fund. How convenient for the lineage of Leon Black. Now going back to Anastasia Siroshenko. Life advice, education, hooking her up with his billionaire buddy to kick her art dealership career off the ground isn't the only help Epstein is providing to Anastasia. In addition to this, when she needs to renew her visa to stay in the United States, Epstein hooks her up with a real good immigration attorney. In this email thread titled US Visa Anastasia, Epstein says, Arda is waiting for you, good luck. Arda is the name of this immigration attorney that Epstein hooked Anastasia up with, and he's kind of intermediating the whole thing. A week later, he's like, did he text you? He said he's gonna send you some forms to sign. And then Arda's emailing Epstein, CC'd Anastasia, saying, Anastasia, we can meet in the afternoon for the forms. And if we look at Arda Beshkardesh's LinkedIn, we find out that at least during that time, he specialized in handling very complicated immigration matters as well as basic international business transactions, including high-profile entertainment immigration of film and music stars, and incorporation of foreign businesses in the United States. Now, if we go to his website called Hukuk Pro, I find it kind of funny that that's all there is. This is it. By appointment only. I guess he really doesn't need to advertise when Epstein is just sending clients his way. And with the help of Arda, the Jeffrey Epstein provided immigration attorney, Anastasia's US visa form gets filed by Arda in conjunction with Anastasia's bookkeeper, John Tomlinson at Sublime Art, who we're going to get into shortly. And we can actually see the petition here, John Tomlinson. You can see that the petitioner is Sublime Art LLC, and they're petitioning specifically for a I-129 non-immigrant worker visa O-1B, which is a special status visa for curator and art buyer and dealers. It is kind of interesting to me that you can legally own a company in America and then have that company petition petition your work visa because you're also the employee for that company. But it looks like that's what they did. And they are successful in their request, as a couple months later, we have an email from Anastasia to Epstein saying, "My visa just got approved for 3 years. Yahoo! Thank you so much for all your help. Hope to have a cup of tea together sometime soon when you're in New York." Smiley face. But that's not all. In the same year Anastasia needs to renew her visa in 2017, the IRS also decides to audit her. And this is when Epstein starts to scramble. When the notice for the audit comes in, there is so much communication between Epstein, Anastasia's bookkeeper at Sublime Art, John Tomlinson, the CPAs that Epstein has Anastasia hired to deal with the tax audit and her taxes in general. And they're just trying to straighten everything out. They're trying to file her 2016 taxes, which have not been filed yet, along with straightening out the 2017 taxes and preparing for the interview with the auditor. And from here on out, you're going to notice that Jeffrey Epstein is way more involved with Anastasia's taxes and audit than Anastasia is. So here it looks like they're late to file her 2016 taxes, and someone is asking Epstein if it's okay to get them filed, and Epstein is like, talk to her, and Anastasia wants to talk on the phone. For 2016, she didn't file any expenses even though she had them, and the bookkeeper John thinks that's gonna raise a red flag. In another thread about the audit, there is a meeting between the bookkeeper and Anastasia's CPA. Epstein's like, who's gonna be there? She says she's not going to be there, it'll just be her bookkeeper and David Weiss, the CPA. Epstein mentions, have you seen the documents? The IRS is asking for quite a few of them, and Anastasia forwards the email with the request from the IRS that her bookkeeper John provides to Epstein. They're asking for all sorts of stuff relating to her Schedule C for the year 2014, Sublime Art 2014 invoices, cost of goods invoices, artwork invoices for inventory purchases, reconciled bank statements, printout of Anastasia's work calendar and documents for meeting and meals, explanation of any international and domestic travel. And at the top, Epstein initially is like, can you give Leon a copy of the tax return for the subject of Tuesday's meeting? And I assume this to be Leon Black, because in another thread, they're discussing how the auditor is going to come to where Anastasia does her business for Sublime Art. They're asking what art inventory is on hand, what the layout of the apartment is. She mentions that she's moving, so there's not a lot left there. And once the auditor visits Anastasia's office, here's the 3 additional things the auditor wants: a copy of her professional bio, a copy of any art fair brochure or exhibit, and the auditor wants to interview Anastasia on the phone about her personal and business relationship with Leon Black. Now you might be wondering, why is the IRS interested in Anastasia's personal and business dealings with Leon Black? Could it be because she's the qualified intermediary and does a lot of art deals with Leon Black? Or perhaps it's because Leon Black and Anastasia are investing into a business together. A company called Artes Inc., later branded into Magnus, which is a phone app that's meant to be the Shazam of the art world, where it crowdsources and creates a database on the price of all artworks that people run into and see at galleries. Or perhaps it's because Anna is receiving millions of dollars worth of gifts into her personal bank account from Leon Black. In this email regarding Anastasia's 2016 taxes, Anastasia, Epstein, Anastasia's Sublime Art bookkeeper, and another CPA from David Weiss are discussing how she has received $3 million in gifts from a trust. In another thread, Epstein is trying to get her taxes and finances straightened out for the audit, and mentions how there's a $600,000 gift, and the gifts that she received came into her personal account. And finally, in this third email, there's a discussion between the bookkeeper John and Jeffrey Epstein regarding what the CPA sees as the big conflict in all of this, and that is on AS, aka Anastasia Sirishenko's personal bank statements. The gift deposits clearly show that they are from LB as in Leon Black. Leon Black also happens to be Sublime's major client, and his name is also on invoices for artwork and the art consulting contracts. Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty big fucking conflict to unwind in front of the IRS. But wait, there is more. Not only is Anastasia additionally investing in a company with Leon Black, while she's also receiving millions of dollars in gifts from Leon Black, when she's supposed to be the qualified agent, aka third party, for Leon's 1031 exchange deals, Anastasia is also not paying taxes on the millions of dollars she is receiving in gifts from Leon Black. In this document, John Tomlinson, the bookkeeper, is discussing with Epstein, and he mentions the CPA anticipates once the IRS sees the gifts into Anastasia's personal account, they will want to know why it wasn't taxed / why it was tax-free. And here's the document number for that. This one is redacted, so that's why I'm showing you this copy. But that's not all. Anastasia is basically one giant walking red flag for the IRS. You see, she has this one other company that's still active today called Lviv Enterprises LLC. In her 2014 tax returns, the company is listed as a rental real estate property. However, it brings in no money, doesn't really seem quite like a proper business. It functions a bit more like a shell company that she transfers money into from her personal account to do business with. For example, in this email, Epstein and Anastasia's bookkeeper John discuss what entity Anastasia used to buy her stake in Magnus with, and John responds that per Anastasia's instructions, he transferred $300,000 from Lviv Enterprises account to Magnus to purchase the shares. And Epstein might be a sicko, but he's no dummy when it comes to money. So he goes, well, how did Lviv get the money? And John goes, Anastasia asked me to transfer $300,000 from her personal bank account to Lviv's account, categorized as a loan for the business. Anastasia also does some financial MacGyvering between Sublime Art and Lviv Enterprises LLC in order to buy a building in Ukraine. In this thread, again, it's Jeffrey and John discussing. I don't know where Anastasia is. This is her freaking taxes they're trying to get straightened out and her audit, but whatever. John explains he sent $50,000 from Sublime's bank account to Poland because he wasn't able to do a wire transfer from Lviv's account yet. And then he sent the same $50,000 from Lviv's bank account back into Sublime to cover it once he was able to make transfers from Lviv's account. And the other portion of the payment for the building, the $78,500, was made directly from Lviv's bank account to Poland by the time he was able to wire transfer from Lviv. And you might be wondering, so what? Can't she buy a building in Ukraine? I mean, yes, the money is gifted from Leon Black, and yes, Anastasia did not pay any taxes on that gifted money, but she does have the money in her bank account, so what's the problem here? The problem is, at the time, no U.S. entity could own property in Ukraine. Therefore, Anastasia had her mom buy the building. Her mom's name is Tatiana, with the money from Lviv Enterprises on behalf of Anastasia. But again, the building was bought by Anastasia's mom in Tatiana's name, not in Anastasia's name. She bought the building from a lady named Olga Kravchuk, who moved to Poland to open up a Pilates studio. I don't know why, but Epstein is like, Olga was a criminal type. Did she flee to Ukraine? I don't think Epstein knew Olga, so he seems to be speculating here. But anyway, this building opens up a whole host of problems for Anastasia. In particular, she used to have the CPA called Michael Stein, who ends up quitting over the disagreement with the building in Ukraine and how it's supposed to be filed in the taxes. You see, Michael is a proper CPA. He does not want to sign off on fraudulent tax returns, so he is grilling John and Anastasia over all the information that they provide. For example, what are the loan terms for the $400,000 you gave over to Lviv Enterprises, which we find out in a separate document that it was partly to pay for the building in Ukraine, and the other $200,000 was to invest in a company called Curation Media. Basically, the disagreement Michael Stein, Anastasia's previous CPA, and Anastasia were having at the time is Michael is saying, look, the building's bought in your mom's name. It doesn't matter if you paid for it. It's her building. So when she passed it over to Lviv Enterprises LLC for it to be yours, that was basically gifted, and therefore you need to pay a gifting tax on it. And she says, no, I paid for it. It's my building. I don't care if it was under my mom's name. I'm not paying no gift tax on it. Michael is additionally grilling her in regards to money they spent for advertising, which apparently they made 48 water bottles because they were hoping to turn this building in Ukraine to like a Pilates studio. He's like, where is the Pilates equipment purchases? What's going on here? What's this $2,500 in office supplies? What's the training cost of $1,000 paid to real Pilates? He's asking all these questions, he's digging in, and in the other thread, we basically find out that they had a meeting between John, the bookkeeper, Anastasia, and Michael Stein, and they could not get to an agreement on how to deal with this Ukraine building. Michael insists that the mother owned it, and she would need to pay a gift tax. She refuses, so Michael officially quits and sends a resignation letter because he's not going to sign his name on a fraudulent tax return. We can get the address of the building here from this article. It's also in the emails, but I kind of lost track of it now. Here's what it looks like. And interestingly enough, while they're trying to turn this into a Pilates studio, the building next to it already has a Pilates studio. And now on Google, it's listed as some sort of a spiritist center. It even has some reviews, but I don't think we can take them seriously. I think this probably has to do with people who realize this building is in the Epstein files. Someone wrote, very interesting kindergarten and very interesting competitions. And then someone else wrote, they locked me in a basement and fed me kids. It's a horrible place. So after this fallout with Michael Stein, they hired the David Weiss CPA company that helps them out with the taxes. Epstein is managing the whole situation, certainly way more involvement than Anastasia. There's emails where he's editing the tax returns with the CPAs and John line by line saying, this is wrong, this needs to be fixed. They're discussing how the CPA has power of attorney, so they should see if he can do the phone interview instead of Anastasia. They're talking about how the furniture at the office needs to be the ones listed as expenses for the tax return. Then Epstein hires a separate CPA to oversee what the second CPAs hired by Anastasia and John are doing. That CPA is checking in to see if Leon Black knows what to say about the situation, if the IRS comes knocking on his door as well. So it's just a whole mess that they're trying to figure out. So finally, I wanted to discuss with you guys the part that I enjoyed the most, which is Epstein losing his crap and just chewing out Leon Black for how exposed he left himself with his involvement with Anastasia. It seems like he's crafting these emails for like a week. In this one, he goes, this is insane. I'm accused of misleading or misrepresenting, and I have to go back on myself, being told Lviv is the shareholder along with Leon, only to find out after asking for the originals from Anastasia in her own fucking name that she's the co-investor with Leon Black Partners and maybe Magnus Investors with the same trust. Deb as the beneficiary. Deb is Leon Black's wife, by the way. Leon, you are not running a pizza place. You have a $6 billion operation run by your friends with no experience, filling out forms, choosing mom and pop shop consultants. And yes, they have experience, but small amounts, meaningless. In this one, he does some more ass chewing. He basically summarizes everything that's going on. Like, look, you wired her money, she wired money into Sublime, and then into the Polish account, then to her personal account, then she made a loan for $400,000 to Lviv, then she argues about whether the building was a gift or not. She has no purchase documents, no transfer records, only the Polish and Ukrainians are allowed to buy property. There's also no loan from Lviv to her. Lviv makes the investment, yada yada yada. She is constantly flighty with accountants. The accountant resigns after saying he refuses to file the incorrect tax returns. He most likely turns her in. Still no Pilates. She buys dresses, cars, water bottles, exercise equipment, cash, home office furniture, depreciation, and then he lists 3 options. First, you're probably going to end up having to pay money. Second, hopefully it's just a civil lawsuit. Or third, it's a criminal lawsuit and it opens you up to wire issues, like wire fraud issues. And finally, in this one, this one is quite long. He starts out by saying he has a lot of experience with the IRS and he has a very good reputation with the IRS because in 40 years, he's never cheated, evaded, or crafted ridiculous returns. Then he lectures Leon about these girls and he says, I have repeatedly told you these girls all want to show how clever they are. They come from countries where taxes are rarely paid, and on top of that, they have no experience with real rules, money, or business. They often and push the envelope beyond the pale, unfortunately usually ending up getting the principal in serious trouble. Sometimes by design, I assume not in this case, though she would not be unhappy to see Deborah find out about it. Ooh, why does Anastasia care if Deborah, Leon's wife, finds out about this? Gee, I wonder why Leon was paying her like $3 million in gifts. Was it just the artwork, or was there more going on? And all I have to say to this is, like, look, you guys are the ones messing around with a young woman from Eastern Europe and the Eastern Bloc countries. What do you expect? And frankly, I don't think anything came out of this audit. He probably did just need to pay some money to make it go away at the end of the day. But I have to say, it is a little nice to see Epstein stressed out for a change. And that's the story of the Eastern European model who turned elite art dealer that almost got billionaires in trouble with IRS. I have like 3 homework assignments due next weekend in addition to my full-time job, so next week's video might be out a few days late. My apologies in advance. If you enjoy digging through the public catacombs we call the internet, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.